Former Gauteng Premier Mbhazima Shilowa has written a scathing opinion piece about the growing cost of living in the country, saying that government is failing our people. Shilowa says that the fuel hikes have exposed the lack of efficient and affordable public transport system. We speak to him now for more on this opinion piece. Thank you very much, sir, for availing yourself this afternoon. You talk us through a time pre-democracy of how the transport infrastructure system was running in South Africa. In your opinion piece, a line that stood out for me that says, "I never once arrived late for work," when you talk about your personal journey. There's an incident at one of the country's pharmacies, if you will, and two managers were discussing an employee, saying that they might have to let him go because he's always late for work, but he always puts it down to transport. Perhaps let's start with your personal journey in terms of what you experienced pre-democracy where transport is concerned.
Thank you very much. And I think it's not just my own personal journey, but I think many people, and if I use just my situation, coming, say, from parts of Limpopo, parts of Mpumalanga, they would be able to tell you that every day from platform 12 and 14 in Johannesburg, there was a train that was leaving from there to Polokwane, Soekmekar, Messina to Beit Bridge. There was also another one that would go from there all the way to Zanin, another one to Nelspruit, Nkomati Port, Maputo. And I think that would have been the same situation across the country. Similarly, in major cities, you could be able to get to work on time using public transport, not just the railways, but also the buses. So the key question is, if we could be able to do something like that under conditions of apartheid, where they really didn't care about black workers and black people, it was really more to ensure that they can move them from one place to another. You can be able to move them from the rural areas or the reserves, as they were known, to Johannesburg very cheaply. Same thing to different areas of work. Why is it that we are not able to do it today? And I put it down to really the fact that maybe public transport has not been made the central pillar of economic activity, economic development in our country, both by the trade union movement, business people, the government, and broader communities.
You point out that today the situation leaves much to be desired, and you speak of a transport minister that is more concerned about likes and retweets on Twitter instead of the plight of the working people. How would you assess his tenure?
I mean, to be fair, it's not just Mbalula, you know. I think most ministers that have been there, especially post around 2002, to date, the situation have been deteriorating. So I would say that in general, even though in the manifesto of the ANC and other political parties, issues of public transport is mentioned there, the reality is that today, as I speak to you, there are more trains out there by the siding in Bramfontein, in Springs, in Davidton, in Pretoria, than you find out ferrying people. I mean, no less a person than President Ramaphosa during the 2019 national elections. He was stuck for an hour in a train. In fact, halfway, he had to abandon the Sharaz and decided, you know what, we're just too late. We just have to move forward. So one would have thought that him having had that particular experience, things would change. What is the problem? Problem obviously is that, as I'm saying, we've got a minister and ministers who really don't seem to know what they are doing there. Secondly, you've got a Prasa board, which is more concerned about what tenders they can be able to dole out than deal with those. which is why I'm saying that in my view, not only do we need a new minister, hoping that we'll be able to find someone who is more concerned about those issues, but we also need to sack the whole Prasa board. And instead of putting another Prasa board, to put in place a national transport authority, which must, as one of its first tasks, try to devolve all of the functions of the metro rail to the provinces and say to provinces, you're now going to run metro rail in the same way that you're running them, and the subsidies that come to you for buses, do the same for trains, ensure that they are all integrated. I think in that way, we will begin to take this issue. But I'm also saying that I think in Nedle, instead of people just discussing in general about issues of economic growth and all of that, they need to agree that there will be no economic growth as long as people stay far away from work. There's no public transport. It is expensive. It is not only for people who have to fork out for petrol. You see, the Golden Arrow buses in Cape Town have already gone up. I've got no doubt that buses in Gauteng and anywhere in the country is going to go up in terms of the fares. Taxis are also going to go far. If you, like me, you drive to Limpopo, all the toll gates are going to be able to go. So everything is going to go up. Because of the petrol rise, the cost of food is going to go high. So unless we really tackle this issue, we are going to be in more serious trouble. And we may see more strife, from communities on issues of public transport and lack of food because we're not paying enough attention.
Due to time constraints, perhaps just if we can get a final thought, since we do have you on the line, on the appointment of the Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo as Chief Justice of South Africa.
I think it's a good pair of safe hands. Obviously, the President would have looked at the requirements and say, under the circumstances, I'm going to go with Zondo. I know he's got only 2 years left, but he will have enough to be able to do in the 2 years. I'll also be able to get a Deputy Chief Justice in the form of Maya, and together they'll form a formidable team. Of course, their role is to steer the whole legislature, but judiciary. But it's also more important to ensure that they bring in confidence into the whole judiciary system.